He was more than fast. He was precise. He was more than strong. He was thoughtful. Many who trained with him said Bruce Lee moved like lightning, but thought like a philosopher. Some even called him the Einstein of martial arts, not because of what he did on screen, but because of how deeply he understood movement, timing, and the human body. On a quiet night, just before midnight, the world lost him. Bruce Lee passed away suddenly at only 32 years old, leaving behind shock, confusion, and a silence that felt impossible to fill. The official explanation was brief and clinical, a rare reaction to a single tablet that caused swelling in the brain. A simple answer for a loss that felt anything but simple. For more than 5 decades since that night in July 1973, people from every corner of the world have traveled to Seattle to stand quietly before his grave. They bring flowers, they leave notes. Some bow, some simply stand still, reflecting on how one man reshaped martial arts, film, and identity across cultures. Yet one part of his story was never meant to be touched again. His tomb was sealed the day he was laid to rest and remained untouched for half a century, until now. To understand why that mattered, we must return to the beginning. Bruce Lee's life began in San Francisco's Chinatown while his father's Chinese opera company was touring. He was named Li Jun-fan, meaning return again, a name that would echo symbolically throughout his life. Though born in America, his childhood unfolded in Hong Kong, surrounded by performance, cinema, and tradition. But Bruce was never content with safety or comfort. As a teenager, he drifted into street fights, not out of cruelty, but curiosity and survival. School never held his attention. Life outside the classroom did. Those experiences led him to Wing Chun master Ip Man, where Bruce found more than technique, he found discipline and philosophy. Yet even then, Bruce questioned everything. He wanted to know why something worked, not just how. That restless curiosity followed him back to America at 18, with little money but endless ambition. In Seattle, he opened a small martial arts school, teaching anyone willing to learn regardless of background. This was unheard of at the time. It was radical. There, he met his first American student, Jessie Glover, and Linda Emery, who would become his wife. Bruce wasn't just teaching punches and kicks, he was sharing ideas. His demonstrations at a 1964 karate tournament caught Hollywood's attention, leading to his breakout role on The Green Hornet. But Hollywood still doubted him. They doubted his accent, his heritage, his ability to lead. So Bruce returned to Hong Kong, where the Big Boss and Fist of Fury shattered records and transformed him into a global star. Just as the world was opening its doors to him, everything stopped. On July 20th, 1973, Bruce Lee collapsed at the apartment of actress Betty Ting Pei while discussing future projects. He never recovered. The explanation was medical. The questions were endless. Bruce's death left a vacuum far greater than his age suggested. He was not only a martial artist or actor, he was a cultural force. At a time when racial divisions were deeply rooted, Bruce quietly dismantled barriers. He trained students of every race. He believed martial arts belonged to humanity, not to one culture or lineage. In Hollywood, he challenged stereotypes head-on, refusing roles that reduced Asian characters to caricatures. He pushed for stories where Asian men were strong, intelligent, and complex. When he pitched The Warrior, a show centered on a Chinese martial artist in the American West, the network rejected it, only to later produce a similar concept with a different face. Bruce knew the system was stacked against him, but he never stopped pushing. Behind the scenes, he trained athletes, actors, and thinkers alike, including Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, whose friendship reflected Bruce's belief that martial arts could connect worlds that society kept apart. His workouts were decades ahead of their time. He blended strength training, endurance, flexibility, and technique, what we now call cross-training. His personal library overflowed with books on anatomy, philosophy, psychology, and combat systems. Bruce wasn't interested in tradition for tradition's sake. His guiding principle was simple: absorb what is useful, discard what is not, and add what is uniquely your own. That philosophy resonated far beyond martial arts. When Bruce was laid to rest, Linda Lee made a choice that surprised many. Though Bruce had become a hero in Hong Kong, she chose Seattle as his final home. It was where he had built his American life, taught his students, and started his family. At Lakeview Cemetery, his grave became a place of pilgrimage. Years later, another tragedy struck. In 1993, Bruce's son, Brandon Lee, died at just 28 years old after a tragic on-set accident while filming The Crow. Like his father, Brandon was taken suddenly, just as his own career was rising. He was buried beside Bruce, father and son united in silence. Visitors now stand before two graves, reflecting not only on loss, but on legacy. Two lives cut short, yet endlessly influential. For decades, that tomb remained sealed, protected by time and reverence. No one imagined it would ever be opened. But time has its own demands. In 2025, something unexpected happened. After more than 50 years, Lakeview Cemetery required a preservation inspection of Bruce Lee's tomb. The request was quiet, procedural, and deeply sensitive. Linda Lee Cadwell hesitated. Opening the tomb meant reopening wounds that had never fully healed. But she understood the necessity. Bruce believed in honoring the past while preparing for the future. With her blessing, and under the guidance of their daughter Shannon Lee, a small team of preservation experts began their work. There were no cameras, no headlines, just careful hands and deliberate steps. The site was secured, climate controls were installed. Buddhist monks performed a dawn ceremony, their chants drifting softly through the trees. When the tomb was finally opened, it felt as if time had paused. Inside, everything remained nearly as it had been in 1973. The air carried the faint scent of incense. Fabrics retained their color. Objects rested exactly where they had been placed. Among them were Bruce's personal items, his nunchaku, preserved with care, his early Wing Chun manual, filled with handwritten notes bridging east and west, and letters sealed by loved ones. Linda's letters spoke of grief, love, and resolve. But one item stood apart, a letter written by Bruce himself, sealed with red wax marked by two intertwined dragons. Written days before his death, it did not read like a farewell, it read like guidance. Bruce spoke of growth, adaptation, and the journey never truly ending. He urged future readers not to follow him, but to find their own path, to move through life like water, quiet, flexible, unstoppable. The discovery did not answer every question. Instead, it deepened the meaning of his life. Bruce Lee was never about endings. He was about evolution. And perhaps that is what opening the tomb ultimately revealed, not secrets, but continuity. A reminder that legacy is not something buried. It is something lived, carried forward, and reshaped by each generation that chooses to listen.